Hello there, my name is Mooseman, and today I will be informing you of whether you should play, wait, or avoid the ultra-fast racing game, Fast Racing Neo. As always, we'll be looking at gameplay, aesthetics, future potential, and value before making a final verdict on Fast Racing Neo. Fast Racing Neo is a Nintendo eShop game for Wii U that plays extremely closely to F-Zero, almost to the point of seeming like a spiritual successor to a series that Nintendo has seemed to have forgotten about. The game was created by the developer Shinen Multimedia, who among other various Nintendo, WiiWare, and handheld titles, made the first iteration of the series known as Fast Racing League. Fast Racing's gameplay overall is simplistic. You can accelerate, boost, brake, slide, and change your light color, but where the game gains complexity is the speed at which you race at. While Fast Racing Neo plays very similarly to F-Zero games, there are two major differences between F-Zero's gameplay and Fast Racing Neo's gameplay. Firstly, boosting is done at the expense of your boost meter, which fills up as you collect orbs scattered across the track. Each orb gives you a small amount of boost depending on how far back in the race you are, with last place gaining substantially more boost than first place. The colored panels from F-Zero still exist in Fast Racing Neo, but serve a different purpose. You can change your light color between red and blue to match the panels on the track. Hitting a red panel while red will give you a boost, while hitting the red panel while blue will slow you down, and vice versa. This may seem simple at first, but many times the panels are set up consecutively in different colors, requiring foresight and quick reaction times to hit. Besides the minor differences in the boost system, the main thing that sets Fast Racing Neo apart from F-Zero is the ridiculous amount of speed you go at while you're playing the game. Even the slowest speed available, subsonic, seems extremely fast when it's first starting out. The fastest speed, hypersonic, becomes so fast that you can almost no longer make corrections or dodge obstacles on the fly, as the game becomes completely based on your knowledge of the tracks instead. This happens not only because of the speed, but because of the floating nature of the ships, which prevents you from making split-second movements. As a fan of the racing genre, I thoroughly enjoy Fast Racing Neo, but it is a game with an extremely high difficulty in comparison to more casual titles like Mario Kart, which may end up frustrating you if you aren't willing to practice the tracks. Not only does the game demand perfection to win races, but the game has very few catch-up mechanics, which punishes every mistake you make tremendously. When you're behind, you're given more boost meter than the people in front of you, but even then a critical mistake will most likely result in you dropping 2 to 4 places in the standings, even if you race perfectly the rest of the time. While I enjoy high-skill racing games, Fast Racing Neo ends up being too hard to catch up in, even if you are racing perfectly. The extra boost gained from being behind isn't enough, and while it does allow you to maintain a position, very rarely, if ever, have I overtaken someone who has been ahead of me by any measurable distance unless they themselves crash. This is mitigated by a measurable degree if you're playing one of the faster ships, but only the most experienced players can even hope to survive at those speeds. There are 10 ships available in the game, with half of them being available immediately and more being unlocked as you play through championship mode. Each ship has 3 stats: top speed, acceleration, and weight, which ends up translating into handling. While any ship can be viable, playing at the fastest ship you can handle will always be the best option. Since crashing pretty much guarantees a loss, acceleration is pretty much meaningless, and learning the tracks removes the need for extra handling. There are 3 primary single-player modes available in Fast Racing Neo. The first is Championship Mode, which is your standard cup-style racing where you race 4 tracks consecutively, with the winner being determined by points gained from coming in higher places. This mode is the primary mode and is required to unlock any of the higher speeds. While it may seem like a negative to be forced to play through the slower speeds, this was a great decision by the developer because, as I mentioned earlier, the speed at which the game gets to on the highest settings becomes hard even for experienced players. The game's difficulty is no joke, but the developers barring off the higher speeds until you complete lower speeds gives a great feeling of progression to the game instead of frustrating players who may try to jump to the highest settings immediately if it were available to them. The second mode, Hero Mode, is a mode that makes it abundantly clear that the game was designed directly with F-Zero in mind. In addition to the normal mechanics, your boost bar becomes your health meter as well, and one death will end your race. Unlike Championship Mode, Hero Mode only consists of playing a single individual level, which is unfortunate because I found Hero Mode to be an overall more enjoyable experience than the standard race mode. The game does become even harder, however, so I'm guessing it was made into a secondary mode to decrease the difficulty in the main game mode in an already high skill game. The final mode is time trials. Overall, I have no complaints about the time trials. They give you a good way to practice at all speeds on all tracks. As someone who frequents time trials in a number of racing games, I do want to say that I appreciate the ability to quickly restart tracks with only a small load time, as one of my biggest pet peeves is having to wait an overly long time on the game to load when attempting to perfect a track. So far I've only talked about the single player, but the game does also have multiplayer. You can play with up to 4 local players or as a single player online. Local multiplayer gives you the option to play each speed mode, with most controller options being available. You can even choose to use motion controls, however I don't recommend it. Online play is decent. You can play with up to 8 players, whether it's with friends or random matchmaking. The online play has improved over time since the game was released, with there being only a handful of situations where players seem to lag around the track. That being said, there are 2 major problems with online that have really kept me away from playing it a lot. The first is that you can only play as a single player. While locally you can play with up to 4 friends, online restricts you to only playing by yourself. The other issue is that you can only play online at the subsonic speed. While subsonic speed at first is fun, as you play at higher speeds, going back to the subsonic level is very underwhelming, and being restricted to this mode online is extremely unfortunate. Overall, the aesthetics in Fast Racing Neo are very good, especially considering the limitations of the Wii U. Each level is designed uniquely and has a large number of visuals happening in the background, which greatly enhances the feeling of each environment. The weather effects are also great on the levels that have them, and it really shows off what can be done with the Wii U with proper optimization. The game runs at 60 FPS, which is absolutely necessary in order for players to even have a chance at keeping up at what's going on screen. The game holds 60 FPS extremely well in single player, but does drop a little bit when you're playing local multiplayer. The cost of higher fidelity graphics and 60 FPS, however, is the lack of any anti-aliasing. In order to get the game to run at a constant 60 FPS on Wii U, the developers opted out of using anti-aliasing, resulting in extremely rough edges on almost every object in the game. At high speeds it isn't noticeable close up, but objects in the distance still have quite a noticeable jagged edge on them. One major criticism I do have of the aesthetics from a gameplay standpoint is that obstacles on the track are not emphasized enough. Considering that hitting any obstacle causes you to explode and lose a huge amount of your lead, the game does a pretty poor job of coloring and lighting dangerous obstacles. The combination of speed and inability to make minor adjustments quickly due to the floatiness of the ships makes it very difficult to play certain tracks at higher speeds without wrecking. Many of the obstacles also move throughout the race, so even if you know the track well, you may still end up in a situation where a box is in a bad spot, which causes you to lose the race. Fast Racing Neo is a complete game on its own, and while additional online speeds and newer tracks would be nice, the biggest future potential for Fast Racing Neo is to show Nintendo that fans still have a craving for another F-Zero or F-Zero style game. As we move into the twilight years of the Wii U, franchises like F-Zero are sadly still missing, along with fewer and fewer racing games in general. Games like Mario Kart and Fast Racing Neo show there's still a lot that can be done with the racing genre, and hopefully sales of this game are high enough to influence more developers to look into revitalizing this genre. Fast Racing Neo is priced at $15, and the game is worth at that price. 16 tracks, time trials, hero mode, local and online play make for many hours of enjoyment. Learning and beating the game at the fast speeds will have you practicing quite a bit, and even I have yet to get gold in every single cup. Fast Racing Neo may be a little too fast for the casual racing fan, but there's still a lot of fun to be had if you're willing to learn the tracks and can handle the speed. While the game running at 60 FPS keeps the racing smooth, it does feel like a waste to limit this game exclusively to Wii U, since visuals, local play, and online play suffer because of it, with the only real return being that you have motion controls. That being said, if you're looking for an F-Zero style game and are up to the challenge of racing at high speeds, I recommend that you play Fast Racing Neo. While the game is far from perfect and may be a bit too hard for casual racing fans to handle, it is certainly a hidden gem on the Nintendo eShop that deserves your look. So it's been quite a while since my last review, so if you're a returning subscriber, I thank you so much for sticking around with me during my YouTube hiatus. If you're not a subscriber, consider doing so because I'll be returning to a regular video schedule with more reviews, news, and other gaming commentary, such as my review of Jotun, a 2D Titan Souls style game with a unique hand-drawn aesthetic, or my review of Extreme Exorcism, a survival platformer with a copy mechanic that forces you to consider every move carefully.